It was March of 2022, one of those humid Saturday afternoons that the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, insists on having even at the tail end of winter. I had prepared my famous jambalaya, the same recipe I'd been making since my boys were small, with authentic Louisiana spices and fresh produce from the farmer's market. The table was set with the embroidered linen cloth I received at my wedding and the crystal glasses I only use for special occasions, because this truly was special. All three of my sons had received major promotions at the same company. What father wouldn't be thrilled? Robert arrived first, always punctual when free food was involved. At 45, my eldest had developed that successful executive's paunch and the air of superiority that came with it. "Dad, you really outdid yourself today," he drawled, looking around my modest dining room. "It's like you actually have money to spare." The first stab. I smiled, as I always did. Michael and Andrew arrived just after, families in tow. My daughters-in-law offered those fake little air kisses. The teenage grandkids barely looked up from their cell phones. But that was fine. That's just family, I thought. The important thing was being together. During dinner, they talked about their new positions at Ascendant Group. Robert was now regional manager. Michael was taking the comptroller spot. Andrew would be joining the main legal team. All moving up in the world. I listened with pride, asking the right questions and showing genuine interest. It was when they finished eating that all hell broke loose. Robert stood up, grabbed his glass of wine, a nice Cabernet Sauvignon I'd bought especially for the occasion, and announced, "A toast to our father, who has finally accepted that he is nothing in life." The silence lasted less than a second before the explosion of laughter. Michael doubled over, cackling. "It's true," he wheezed, after years of pretending he understood business. Andrew chimed in, wiping tears of laughter. At least now he'll stop giving advice on things he knows nothing about. The daughters-in-law laughed too. The grandkids laughed. My own table, in my own house, became a courtroom where I was the convicted defendant. "Remember when he tried to give opinions on Robert's condo purchase?" said Tanya, my eldest daughter-in-law, as if she were a real estate expert. "Or when he wanted to comment on investments," Michael added. "Dad, with all due respect, you barely know what a savings account is." I remained seated, my fork suspended in the air, with a piece of meat I couldn't swallow. My stomach had turned into a cold, heavy stone. Robert continued his humiliating speech. "It's better this way, that you accept your limitations. People like you should settle for the minimum and stop dreaming big." That exact phrase was one I had heard 60 years ago, when a teacher said poor black boys like me shouldn't dream big. It was the same phrase that motivated me to build everything I had built. And now, 6 decades later, my own son was throwing it in my face. "We just want you to be realistic, Dad," Andrew said, feigning kindness. "Accept your situation and stop getting involved where you're not needed." It was then I felt something shift inside me, a coldness that started at the base of my skull and ran down my spine like melting ice. For the first time in decades, my mask of the submissive father began to crack. Because they didn't know. They had no idea who was truly sitting at the head of that table, cutting jambalaya with hands that had signed multi-million-dollar contracts. They didn't know that the poor guy who always asked for help was Elias Samuel Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Enterprises, the very holding company that controlled Ascendant Group, where they had just been promoted. I swallowed the piece of meat in my mouth, took a sip of wine, and smiled. "You're right," I said, with the sweetest voice I could manufacture. A man my age should know his place. They applauded. They literally applauded. And it was in that moment that the real Eli woke up. To understand what happened at that dinner table, you need to know about the double life I've been living for more than 20 years. A life so well constructed that not even my own children suspected the truth. To them, I was Elias Samuel Sterling, a 65-year-old widower, living in a small older home in the University City area of Charlotte. I drove a 10-year-old Honda Accord and lived off my late wife Aisha's pension, plus a small teacher's retirement. I was a man who bought clothes at discount stores, shopped at the wholesale market, and always asked for help when the electric bill was too high. This version of me wore house shoes inside, watched the 6 o'clock news religiously, and saved loose change in an empty coffee can. He complained about the price of gas, haggled at the market, and talked about these crazy prices every time we ate out, which was rare because money was tight. It was such a perfect performance that sometimes I forgot it was a lie myself. The real Eli was someone completely different, someone who wore custom Armani suits, drove an armored BMW, and commanded meetings in uptown offices. He was someone who had started with a piece of inherited land in the 80s and built a real estate empire now valued at more than $50 million. When my wife died in 2001, I had a choice. I could reveal our true wealth to the children. Aisha had always known. She was my silent partner. Or I could shield them from the corruption that easy money brings. I chose to protect them. I thought it was love. What a bitter joke. During the week, I was the CEO of Sterling Enterprises. I analyzed projects, signed contracts, and made decisions that affected hundreds of jobs. On weekends, I returned home and pretended to struggle with the phone bill. "Oh, son, can you check this for me? I don't understand these modern things." They loved explaining the basics to me. They felt important, superior. Robert especially always had that condescending professorial air. "Dad, this is how credit cards work." "Dad, let me handle this. You don't need to worry." I let them believe for 20 years that they were the intelligent ones in the family, that they had inherited their wit from someone else, while I was just a well-meaning but limited family accessory. The two-bedroom house in the modest neighborhood was real. I really lived there among piles of cheap clothes and discount furniture. 3 blocks away, in a building I myself had constructed, and where I maintained a penthouse under a corporate name, I kept my real life. A walk-in closet with designer clothes, an art collection, a first edition library, a climate-controlled wine cellar. That's where I received Dr. Julian Hayes, my lawyer and only confidant, a man of integrity who for 15 years insisted I should tell my children the truth. "Eli, this farce is going to cause problems. They have a right to know who their father really is." I always refused. "Julian, don't you understand? I want them to build their own paths, to earn their own merit. If they know I'm rich, they'll settle. They'll become parasites." As if they hadn't become that anyway. For decades, I watched my sons grow up, believing I was dead weight in their lives, that they had to put up with me out of obligation, helping me out of Christian charity, always with that martyr's air, as if maintaining their poor old dad was a terrible burden they bore with heroic resignation. Robert graduated with a business degree, got an internship somewhere, and 2 years later, purely by coincidence, Ascendant Group, one of my subsidiaries, had the perfect position for him. The HR manager, without knowing who I was, hired my son based purely on his resume. Robert never knew his luck had a surname and an address. Michael and Andrew followed the same path, accounting and law, respectively. Both were conveniently absorbed by the same company that had hired their older brother. What a marvelous coincidence, right? I watched from afar, through discreet reports, as they climbed the corporate ladder. I felt proud when they received praise from supervisors, and worried when they made mistakes. But I could never show that I knew. When they came home, talking about projects, I pretended not to understand anything. "How interesting, son. You are so smart." They swallowed it whole. The worst part is that they genuinely became good professionals. Robert had a natural business instinct. Michael was meticulous with numbers. Andrew understood complex contracts. They didn't need my invisible protection to thrive, but I kept protecting them anyway. Until that night in March, when I discovered that to them, I wasn't a father who deserved love and respect. I was just a pathetic old man they tolerated out of social obligation. People like you should settle for the minimum. The same phrase that had built me was now back to destroy me. Except this time, it wasn't spoken by a prejudiced teacher. It was my own blood. 3 days after the dinner, I kept pretending everything was normal. I called each of them to thank them for the nice family evening and congratulate them on their promotions. They were polite, but colder, as they always were. I realized it now. The following Wednesday, Robert called. "Dad, do you have a few minutes? I wanted to talk about something important." My heart skipped a beat. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe he wanted to apologize, to explain the joke was in poor taste. "Of course, son. Do you want to come here? I'll make coffee. Actually, it's better if you come to my place. Michael and Andrew will be there too. It's about your future." My future? How interesting. I arrived at Robert's condo at 3 in the afternoon, driving my Accord and wearing a simple shirt from the discount store. Everyone was in the living room with serious expressions they tried to disguise as loving concern. "Sit here, Dad," Andrew said, patting the sofa next to him. "We want to talk about some possibilities for improving your quality of life." Robert pulled a folder from the coffee table. Inside were color-printed brochures, all for senior living facilities. My blood ran cold. "Dad, it's nothing definitive," Robert began in that familiar, condescending tone. "But we've been thinking that maybe you're too lonely in that house." "That's right," Michael agreed. "You're 65 now, and after Mom died—" "It's been almost 22 years, Michael," I interrupted. "Exactly. Too long alone. It's not healthy." Andrew leaned forward, adopting his best persuasive tone. "Look at these places, Dad. They have activities. People your age. 24-hour medical assistance." I picked up one of the brochures. St. Jude's Senior Living. On the back, a price chart. $600 a month. The cheapest of the bunch. "We already visited a few," Robert said. "This one here is very good. Simple, but clean. Within what we can afford. Within what they could afford. $600 divided by 3 was $200 each. The price of a good takeout pizza." "And my house?" I asked, glancing at the brochures. The three exchanged glances. Robert cleared his throat. "Well, the truth is, that house is too big for you, and the neighborhood is getting rough. A lot of crime." "We could sell it," Michael quickly added. "Use the money to pay for the senior living home, and there'd still be a little left over for you to have your things. And to split the rest among yourselves?" I asked. Uncomfortable silence. "Dad, it's not like that," Andrew said. "It's just that, we have our own families now, kids to raise, mortgages to pay. Mom's inheritance would help a lot." Mom's inheritance. A house worth about $300,000 that Aisha had bought in the 90s, carefully chosen to appear modest. They didn't even suspect it had been paid off for decades, or that there were 17 more properties scattered across the city. And when would this move be? I asked. We thought maybe by the end of the month, Robert suggested. I already scheduled a visit to St. Jude's for Monday. Do you want to come with us? The end of the month. 2 weeks. Can I think about it? Of course, Dad. No rush at all, Robert lied. We just want what's best for you. I returned home in absolute silence. I didn't even turn on the car radio. I needed to process what I had just discovered. My sons weren't just humiliating me for fun. They were actively planning to get rid of me. That night, I called Dr. Julian Hayes. Julian, it's me. Can you come to my house? The real one, not the facade. Eli, is something wrong? What's wrong is that you were right 15 years ago. This farce is going to cause problems. They want to put me in a $600 a month nursing home. Silence on the other end of the line. I'm on my way. Dr. Hayes arrived an hour later, finding me in the downtown penthouse with a bottle of French wine open and an expression he had never seen on my face. Tell me everything, he said, pouring himself a glass. I told him about the dinner, the laughter, the meeting today, the brochures, the 2-week deadline, and how they talked about the inheritance as if I were already dead. They're acting like I'm a liability they need to manage as cheaply as possible, I finished. They want to put me in a home where they'll visit once a month out of obligation and get on with their lives as if I never existed. Julian took a long sip of wine. And now? Now I'm going to show them exactly who Elias Samuel Sterling is. Eli, think carefully. It's one thing to tell the truth. It's another to think about revenge. I smiled for the first time in 3 days. No, Julian, I'm thinking about justice. There's a difference. What justice? Justice is giving people exactly what they deserve. That night, for the first time in 20 years, I couldn't sleep thinking about my sons, but this time it wasn't paternal concern that kept me awake. It was strategic planning. From that Thursday on, I became a person my sons could never have imagined. A professional investigator of my own family. For 20 years, I pretended to be foolish. Now I was going to use all my business intelligence to uncover their lives. I called Dr. Hayes on Friday morning. I need all the Ascendant Group reports from the last 6 months. Performance, attendance, corporate expenses. Everything you can get without raising suspicion. Eli, I don't think this is a good idea. Julian, you've been my partner for 15 years. I've never asked you to do anything unethical. I just want to know if my sons are the model employees they think they are. Silence. I'll send the email in 2 hours. While I waited, I started my own domestic investigation. For years, Robert had left things at my house when he visited. A cell phone charger, sunglasses, sometimes even his laptop. He never suspected I knew how to use a computer. In a drawer in my real room, in the penthouse, I found an iPhone charger he had forgotten a month ago. His phone was still with him, of course, but I had other plans. On Saturday afternoon, I called Robert. Son, can you come over quick? I'm having trouble with the sink faucet and I can't reach the plumber. Dad, I was just about to watch the game with the guys. Please, it's just a quick look. It must be something simple. He arrived a half hour later, looking annoyed. While he tinkered with the faucet, which obviously had no problem, I offered him coffee. Do you want to charge your cell phone while you're here? I know you forgot your charger the other day. Oh, right, thanks, Dad. It's almost dead. Perfect. While Robert pretended to understand plumbing, I discreetly installed a family tracking app on his phone, one of those used by parents to monitor teenage children. The irony was delicious. Done, Dad. Just needed to be tightened. Oh, You are so clever. I never would have known that. He smiled with that condescending superiority that already made me nauseous. That's what sons are for, right, Dad? On Sunday, the emails from Dr. Hayes arrived. I opened the files in my private office with 2 computer screens and a laser printer, equipment that the poor Eli could never afford. What I discovered left me speechless. Robert, the model regional manager, had a 23% rate of unjustified absences in the last 6 months. He was late, arriving after 10 a.m. 15 times, and left before 4 p.m. on at least 12 occasions. For someone who was supposed to work 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., that was impressive. Michael, the meticulous accountant, had used the corporate card 47 times for questionable expenses, $200 meals, gas from stations near his home, even pharmacy purchases, all classified as representation expenses or corporate use. Andrew, the serious lawyer, held constant private meetings during work hours. According to reports, in March alone, he had registered 12 external meetings lasting between 2 and 4 hours. The problem was there was no record of clients or objectives for these meetings. More interesting still, all 3 had below average performance compared to their colleagues. They weren't bad employees, but they were definitely not the exceptional talents they believed themselves to be. On Monday, I feigned concern and called Robert. "Son, are you sure this new job isn't too much? You sound tired." "Not at all, Dad. It's fine. In fact, the manager position is pretty flexible. I can adjust my hours as needed." Adjust hours. An elegant way of saying come late and leave early. Throughout the week, I tested the tracking app. It worked perfectly. Robert truly arrived at the company between 9:30 and 10 a.m. He went out for lunches that lasted 2 hours and frequently handled external matters that were actually trips to the mall, the gym, or visits to the mistress he kept in an upscale neighborhood. Yes, I discovered the mistress, too. 3 different addresses in the last 3 months. Always on the same days of the week. Always during hours when he should have been working. On Wednesday, I called Michael. "Son, how does that company card thing work? You mentioned they gave you one the other day." "Oh, it's for work expenses, Dad. Meetings, gas, stuff like that. Nothing major." "And do they control it much?" "Not really, as long as it's work-related." Work-related. Like buying blood pressure medication at the pharmacy near his subdivision. Thursday was Andrew's turn. "Son, you're always rushing. These new clients must be keeping you busy." "Yeah, Dad, it's exhausting. But I like to handle things personally, you know? Meeting by meeting to build relationships. Relationships is one way of looking at it, especially considering the meetings always took place at the same physical therapy clinic where his wife was receiving treatment. 5 months of meetings at the same place. What a dedicated client. On Friday, Dr. Hayes came to the penthouse for dinner. He looked worried. "Eli, I got the information you asked for, but are you sure you want to proceed with this? There's still time to simply tell the truth and resolve everything as a family. Julian, on Monday they're taking me to see the senior living home." "How do you know?" "Robert called today, confirming they scheduled it for 2 p.m. He said it's better to resolve this matter soon, so everyone can be at peace." Julian sighed. "And what's your plan?" "I'm still refining the details, but I know enough now to understand that my dear sons are not the model employees they pretend to be." "Are you going to fire them?" "Firing them would be too simple, don't you think? Any boss would do that." "But I'm not just any boss, Julian. I'm their father. And fathers know how to educate misbehaving sons." Over the weekend, I decided to expand my investigation. If I was going to do this right, I needed to fully understand how my sons really saw me, not just during direct confrontations, but day to day. On Saturday morning, I called Tanya, my eldest daughter-in-law. Tanya, do you have a few minutes? I'm a little lost with some bills here. Of course, Mr. Sterling. I'll be there in an hour. Tanya arrived with that artificial smile I knew well, but now I paid real attention to the details. The way she looked around the house, as if appraising a property for purchase. The way she discreetly sighed when I asked her silly questions about the phone bill. Mr. Sterling, have you thought about simplifying these things? There's automatic digital billing now. You wouldn't even have to worry. Oh, but I'm too old for these modern things. No, it's not a matter of age. It's a matter of, well, adapting to the times. For 2 hours, she helped me with my bills, always with that tone of someone doing Christian charity. But what caught my attention was when her phone rang. Hello, sweetie. I'm at your dad's place. It's those bills. He can't figure them out alone. Uh-huh. No, I won't be long. It's a little complicated, but it's quick. I'll be home in an hour. Complicated and interesting. When she hung up, I asked, was that Robert? Yes, he's home with the kids. It's nice that you help each other out. Family is everything, right? Absolutely, Mr. Sterling. You can always count on us. After she left, I kept thinking about that tone. Complicated. As if I were a difficult child who needed to be managed. On Sunday, I used a different strategy. I called Michael and pretended to feel ill. Son, can you come over? I feel kind of strange, dizzy. Dad, is it serious? Do you want me to take you to the hospital? No, I think it's just low blood pressure. But I was alone and got scared. He arrived in 20 minutes, genuinely worried. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. Maybe I was exaggerating. Maybe there was still salvation for our relationship. Until he took a call in my kitchen. Hello, my love. It's just Dad. He's having one of his attention crises. You know how he is. Always inventing little problems to get attention. I won't be long. I just need to make an appearance for a few minutes and pretend I'm worried. Pretend? He was worried. When he came back to the living room, he was smiling affectionately. How do you feel now, Dad? Better? It must have just been a scare. You have to take better care of yourself. Eat well. Don't worry about nonsense. Nonsense, like the bills he himself was helping me understand, while feigning angelic patience. Michael, can I ask you something? Sure, Dad. Do you think I'm a burden in your lives? He seemed genuinely surprised. Dad, how could you think that? I don't know. Sometimes I get the impression that I bother you a lot. You never bother us. We just wanted to take care of you. It's our obligation. Obligation. Not love, not affection, obligation. And about that conversation on Wednesday, about the senior living home. Dad, we were just thinking about your well-being. It's not forced if you don't want to. But you guys think it would be better? A long pause. Well, it would be a way for you to have more company. People your age, activities, and we would visit. Of course. Every weekend. A lie. I knew it was a lie. Because I knew my sons. Robert barely came to my house once a month, even though I lived 20 minutes away. The prospect of driving to a senior living home in the middle of nowhere to visit their complicated dad, maybe at Christmas. That night, I called the receptionist at Ascendant Group. Not the main company, but a contractor that handled the cleaning. It was a way to get information without raising suspicion. Good evening. This is Elias, Robert Sterling's father. He works there. He forgot some keys today, and I couldn't reach him. Do you know if he's still in the office? Oh, Mr. Sterling, what a coincidence. I'm just cleaning his office. And I saw your son Robert left early today, around 3 p.m. 3 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. What a shame. Did he mention where he was going? No. But judging by the hurry he was in, it must have been something important. He even left his desk messy, which he never does. Something important, of course. The weekly rendezvous in the upscale neighborhood. And do you know my other sons, Michael and Andrew? I know them, yes. What polite sons you have. They always say hello, ask about the family. They do? Yes. The other day, Michael even gave me a $10 tip to buy a snack for my little girl. He said it was from the company card. It wouldn't make a difference. The company card to tip the cleaning lady. How generous with other people's money. And Andrew? How is he doing? Oh, he's a hard worker, always running around, meetings almost every day. You must be proud. I am. They've always been very dedicated. On Monday morning, I dressed as poor Eli and waited for Robert to pick me up for the visit to the senior living home. He arrived promptly, driving the BMW he had bought with so much effort, not knowing I had indirectly financed it through corporate bonds. Good morning, Dad. Ready to see your new home? New home, as if it were a voluntary and exciting move. During the drive, he talked about the place's benefits. You'll see, Dad. It's very organized. They have 24-hour nurses, balanced meals, and the price. We'll manage, Dad. Between Michael, Andrew, and me, we'll handle it just fine. $200 a month from each son to get rid of Dad forever. The senior living home was exactly what I expected. Hallways smelling of disinfectant, overworked nurses, abandoned elderly people watching television with the volume too high. The director, a woman in her 50s with a commercial smile, greeted us at the entrance. Mr. Sterling, what a pleasure to meet you. Robert told me so much about you. I hope good things, I replied. Of course. He says you are a very quiet person. That's excellent. Here at St. Jude's, we have a well-structured routine for residents like you. Residents like me. Elderly people discarded by their families. She showed us the small rooms with 2 beds, a dresser, and a tiny window. You would stay here with Mr. Asher. He's very quiet, barely talks. Mr. Asher was sitting on the bed, staring at the wall. How long had he been there? How long since someone had visited him? And visits? I asked. Allowed on weekends from 2 to 5 p.m. Very flexible. 3 hours a week to see the father who raised you for 45 years. In the cafeteria, we witnessed lunchtime. Elderly people being fed like babies, others eating alone in absolute silence. A man cried softly in the corner. No one paid him any attention. Is it always like this? I asked the director. Oh, Mr. Enrique is just nostalgic for his family. Normal. He'll get used to it. He'll get used to it. As if giving up on living were a natural process of adaptation. Robert seemed satisfied with what he saw. What do you think, Dad? Isn't it a cozy place? Cozy. Like a prison. During the return trip, he asked. So what did you think? Different from what I imagined. In a good way. Robert, can I ask you something honest? Sure, Dad. Do you really think I deserve to end my days in a place like that? A long silence. He drove, staring straight ahead. Dad, it's not a question of deserving. It's a question of practicality. You can't be alone forever. And we don't have the structure to care for an elderly person. I'm 65, Robert. Not 85. I know, but it's better to prevent, right? And you won't be alone there. I won't be alone. I'll be abandoned, but not alone. When we arrived at my house, Robert kissed my cheek with that usual protocol kiss. Think about it carefully, Dad. We just want what's best for you, what's best for me. $200 a month from each of the sons I raised. That night in the penthouse, I opened a bottle of wine and made some important calls. It was time to stop investigating and start acting. Tuesday morning, I woke up at 5:30 a.m., not because I was nervous. Nervousness was a luxury I couldn't afford. I woke up because my body knew it was the day of truth. First stop, the salon in the upscale area of town, where I had an appointment with Lena, the stylist who had been caring for my hair for 10 years, not the Lena from the neighborhood where poor Eli got $10 cuts. The professional Lena who charged $300 for a complete transformation. Mr. Sterling, finally, it's been so long. I missed you. I've been resolving family matters, Lena. Today I need to look impeccable, the most important meeting of my life. 3 hours later, I left there unrecognizable, hair cut and styled elegantly, beard trimmed, nails manicured. In the mirror, I saw a 65-year-old executive who could command any company in the country, because that was exactly what I was. Back at the penthouse, I put on the black Armani suit I reserved for the most serious meetings. Leather shoes, not the pointy, impossible ones, but dress shoes that gave me authority, without compromising mobility. The Cartier watch Aisha had given me on our 20th anniversary. The gold rings her father left me as an inheritance, pieces that alone were worth more than my son's annual salaries. At 10:30 a.m., I was at the Sterling Enterprises office downtown. Shonda, my executive assistant, greeted me with a nervous smile. "Mr. Sterling, the documents are ready. Should I call the gentleman now?" "Not yet. First, I want to confirm a few details." I sat at my presidential desk, the one made of solid mahogany that took up half the office, and reviewed the files one last time. Everything perfect. Irrefutable evidence. Complete documentation. Legal precedent for termination with cause. At 11 a.m., I called Dr. Julian Hayes. "Julian, can you come up? I need you to review the documents before we begin." He entered the office 5 minutes later, elegant, as always in his gray suit, but with a worried expression. "Eli, I still think you should talk to them first." "Julian, in your professional opinion, would these irregularities justify termination with cause at any company?" He sighed, glancing over the papers, "They would. And if they were ordinary employees with no personal relationship to you, they would be dismissed, without discussion. Then why should I treat my sons differently? Because they're your sons, Eli." "Exactly, Julian. They are my sons. And a father who does not teach consequences for his children's actions is not a good father." He looked at me for a long time. "You've changed." "I haven't changed. I just stopped pretending." At 11:15, Shonda came in with fresh coffee and an additional folder. "Mr. Sterling, the report you asked for yesterday arrived." I opened the folder. Inside were printouts of WhatsApp conversations that a private investigator had gotten for me. It wasn't cheap, but some investments are worth every penny. "Sterling Enterprises," bros Robert. "Guys, on Monday, we're resolving this dad issue once and for all." Michael. "It's about time. I can't stand those calls asking for help with nonsense anymore." Andrew. "And he agreed to visit the senior living home." Robert. "Yes, he found it interesting." Translation. "He accepted. He has no choice." Michael. "How long do you think it'll take him to get used to it?" Robert. "Couple of months. Then he'll stop complaining." Andrew. "And the house?" Robert. "It'll be sold as soon as he moves in. I already spoke to the broker." Michael. "Split in 3 parts?" Robert. "Obviously. We're the ones who have supported him all these years." Andrew. "True. At least now we can breathe." Robert, and not have to pretend we care about his little problems. Michael, cruel but real. Andrew, family is family, but there are limits. Michael, especially when the person insists on being deadweight. I stopped reading. Not because I was shocked. In 3 weeks, I had matured quite a bit regarding family disappointments. I stopped reading because I had everything I needed. Shonda, can you summon the 3 of them for 2 p.m.? How should I justify it? Say it's an emergency audit. Serious irregularities have been detected, and they need to be clarified immediately. And if they ask specifically what irregularities, say that will be discussed in the meeting. At noon, I ate lunch alone in the office, reviewing my mental speech. There could be no hesitation, no show of weakness, no sentimentality. It was a corporate meeting, dealing with problematic employees. The fact that they were my sons was a coincidence. At 1:30 p.m., Shonda knocked on the door. Mr. Sterling, they've arrived. They're in the conference room. How do they look? Nervous. Robert asked 3 times what the problem was. And you replied? That you would explain everything. Perfect. Give me 5 minutes and send them in. 5 minutes later, I heard voices in the hallway. Voices I had known since they were high-pitched and childish, arguing over who broke the vase or ate the last slice of cake. Now they were deep and adult, but with the same anxiety of children caught in the act. It can't be anything serious. We didn't do anything, Andrew was saying. It must be routine, Michael replied, but without conviction. If it were routine, it wouldn't be an emergency, would it? Robert sounded irritated. This is going to ruin my whole afternoon. Your whole afternoon, which included a 2-hour visit to the upscale neighborhood. Shonda opened my office door. Mr. Sterling, should I send them in? Send them in. I took a deep breath. It was time. In 15 seconds, I would see the expressions on my sons' faces when they discovered who really commanded their professional lives. Gentlemen, please come in. The first thing I noticed was the absolute silence, a silence so profound I could hear the central air conditioning and the distant noise of traffic below. Robert entered first, followed by his brothers, all dressed in their best corporate suits, ties tight, shoes polished. Their posture was that of 3 confident executives entering a routine meeting. For 3 seconds, Robert stopped in the middle of the room as if he had run into an invisible wall. His eyes scanned the environment, the mahogany presidential desk, the legal bookshelves, the framed diplomas on the wall, the painting with city blueprints, the corporate trophies. Then slowly, his gaze rose to me. Dad? The word came out in an incredulous whisper. Michael and Andrew arrived right behind him with the same expressions of someone who had just seen a ghost, or, more precisely, someone who had just discovered that the person they had underestimated for 45 years was sitting at the presidential desk of the company where they worked. Please take a seat, I said, pointing to the 3 chairs arranged in front of my desk. None of them moved. Dad? Robert repeated. What? How? Take a seat, I repeated. This time, without cordiality. They obeyed in silence, like automatons. 3 successful adult men, accustomed to commanding meetings and making decisions, transformed into confused children. I imagine you are surprised, I began, adjusting the papers on the desk. Allow me to clarify the situation. My name is Elias Sterling. I am the founder and principal shareholder of Sterling Enterprises, the parent company of Ascendant Group, where you work. Silence. For the past 15 years, I have followed your careers with paternal interest through reports. I have always known about your performance, progress, and unfortunately, irregularities. Andrew found his voice first. Irregularities? Yes, Andrew. Irregularities. You were summoned because an emergency audit detected serious violations of corporate protocol. I picked up the first folder. Robert Samuel Sterling. Unjustified absences representing 23% of the worked period in the last 6 months. Late arrivals on 47% of workdays. Early departures without authorization in 38% of cases. Robert opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I picked up the second folder. Michael Samuel Sterling. Inappropriate use of corporate resources totaling $12,347 in 6 months. Personal expenses incorrectly classified as representation expenses. Michael turned pale. Third folder. Andrew Samuel Sterling. Job abandonment for 72 hours monthly for external meetings without proof of professional activity. Dad? Andrew tried. I interrupted him, banging the desk. My name is Elias Sterling. Mr. Sterling, if you prefer. Silence again. But this time, a different silence. It was no longer shock. It was the silence of those who were beginning to understand the magnitude of the problem. Each of these irregularities, individually, would justify termination with cause in any serious company, I continued. Combined, they constitute a pattern of behavior incompatible with the values of this organization. Robert tried to regain his composure. Dad, Mr. Sterling, this must be a mistake. A mistake? I picked up a fourth, thicker folder. Robert, would you like to explain what these weekly meetings are on Liberty Avenue 1247, apartment 85? I let him breathe. Or you, Michael. Can you clarify why your representation expenses include cat food when you are allergic to felines? Michael sank into his chair. Andrew, perhaps you can explain why your client meetings all occur at the downtown physical therapy clinic, where your wife receives treatment. Andrew closed his eyes. Gentlemen, I said, standing up, you worked at my company for years, believing you were special employees, that you had natural privileges, exceptional talents that justified differential treatment. I walked to the window, turning my back to them. You were right about the differential treatment. You were wrong about the reason. I turned to face them. You had privileges, not because you are talented. You had privileges because you are my sons. And I naively believed that would motivate you to be model employees. Dad, Robert tried again. Mr. Sterling, I corrected coldly. Mr. Sterling, can we explain? Explain what, Robert? How you justify spending company time visiting your mistress? How you explain to other employees who work 8 hours a day while you work 4? He opened and closed his mouth like a fish out of water. And you, Michael, how do you explain to the bookkeeper who pays for his own lunch while you use the corporate card to buy gifts for your father-in-law? Michael was almost transparent. Andrew, how do you explain to lawyers who work overtime for extra compensation while you use work hours to resolve personal matters? We didn't know, Andrew stammered. Didn't know what? That it was wrong? Or that I was watching you? Silent. Because if you didn't know it was wrong, you don't deserve to work at any company. And if you knew it was wrong but thought you wouldn't be discovered. I left the phrase hanging, heavy with implications. Well, I said, returning to my chair, it's time for you to learn about consequences. I sat down again, opening a different folder. This one contained 3 identical envelopes, sealed with the gold stamp of Sterling Enterprises in the upper right corner. For 3 decades, I began, not looking at them, I built this company from scratch. I started with a piece of land inherited from my father and turned it into an empire that today employs 847 people. I aligned the 3 envelopes on the desk. In these 3 decades, I have dismissed 23 employees for irregularities. From the junior analyst who falsified reports to the director who diverted resources. All received the exact same treatment. A complete investigation, rigorous documentation, termination with cause. I raised my eyes to face them. Today, you join that list. No, Robert exploded, jumping out of his chair. You can't do this. We're your sons. Exactly, I replied calmly. You are my sons. And a father who does not teach consequences for inappropriate actions is not a good father. But, Michael stammered, you always supported us. I supported you, yes. I supported you when you were toddlers learning to walk. I supported you when you were teenagers making mistakes. I supported you when you were young adults, finding your paths. I picked up the first envelope. But you are no longer young adults. Michael, you are 42 years old, married, with children, with responsibilities. And yet you behave like a teenager who can break rules without consequences. Mr. Sterling, Andrew tried, adopting a professional tone. We understand we made mistakes, but we can fix them. Fix them? I laughed without humor. Andrew, you are 38 years old, and for 2 years you have used work time to accompany your wife's medical treatment. That is not a single mistake. It is an established pattern. But she is your wife, and she is an adult capable of going to physical therapy alone. Or you could have adjusted your hours so it wouldn't interfere with work. Options existed. You chose the most convenient one for you and the least respectful one to the company. Andrew sank back into his chair. Robert, I continued, you maintain an extramarital relationship using company time and gas resources. Besides being professionally unethical, it is disrespectful to your wife, your children, and to me. You know about... I know everything, Robert. I am a businessman with 30 years of experience. Did you think I built this empire by being naive about human behavior? He looked devastated. And all of you, I continued, standing up again, share the same fundamental flaw. You think the rules are for others. I walked to the bookshelf, picking up a specific volume. Ascendant Group Internal Regulations. You received copies when you were hired. Did anyone bother to read it? To silence. Page 23. Compliance with working hours is mandatory for all employees, regardless of position or tenure. I flipped a few pages. Page 31. Corporate resources must be used exclusively for activities related to business objectives. More pages. Page 47. Leaves and external activities during work hours require prior authorization and documented justification. I closed the book forcefully. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. You not only violated these rules, you completely ignored them, assuming that your status as sons of the poor guy living on a pension made you immune to consequences. Robert tried one last card. Dad, please, I know we made mistakes, but we're family. Family. I returned to the desk, picking up a fifth folder. Let's talk about family, Robert. I opened the folder, revealing the printouts of the WhatsApp conversations. At least now we can breathe, I read aloud, and not have to pretend we care about his little problems. The three of them turned pale simultaneously. Family is family, but there are limits, especially when the person insists on being dead weight. I threw the papers onto the desk. This is the family you want to invoke now? The same family that was planning to put me in a $600 a month senior living home? Dad, Andrew whispered. He found it interesting. Translation. He accepted. He has no choice. I read another message. I picked up another folder. St. Jude's Senior Living Visit Contract. Signed by Robert Samuel Sterling last Monday. First visit scheduled for Sunday. Robert almost fainted. Property sale proposal. For Flowers Street, 847. Presented to Central Real Estate on Tuesday. Applicant. Robert Samuel Sterling. Power of attorney in the name of Elias. Samuel Sterling. I paused. A power of attorney, which is, by the way, fake. How? How do you know all this? Andrew stammered. Because, my dear Andrew, I am not the confused old man you imagine. I am a businessman who controls every aspect of my properties and investments. I returned to my chair, aligning the 3 envelopes again. You want to talk about family? Let's talk. A family where a 65-year-old father is considered dead weight, where adult sons lie about work commitments to avoid helping, where private conversations include mocking dad's little problems. Each word was like a knife. That family, gentlemen, is already dead. It died at my dining table 3 weeks ago when you laughed at my supposed incompetence. We didn't know, Robert tried. Didn't know what? That I would be capable of understanding that you were humiliating me? That I would have enough intelligence to perceive disdain when I saw it? I raised the 3 envelopes. Or did you not know that the poor man you so despised was actually the man who controlled your professional destinies? Absolute silence. Well, now you know. By 3:30 p.m., I still hadn't opened any of the envelopes. The 3 remained seated in silence, looking younger than they really were, like children summoned to the principal's office after a particularly serious prank. Shonda knocked on the door. Mr. Sterling, Dr. Hayes has arrived. Security guards? Robert asked, alarmed. To escort them to their desks to collect personal belongings under supervision, I explained. Standard procedure for termination with cause. 2 uniformed men entered the room. Professional, polite, but clearly prepared for trouble. Gentlemen, said the taller one, we need to accompany you to your workstations for collection of personal items. And then? Andrew asked. Then you will be escorted out. Your badges and access cards have been canceled. You're treating us like criminals, Michael protested. You are being treated as former employees dismissed for serious irregularities, I corrected, which is technically what you are. Robert stood up slowly. For a moment, I thought he was going to explode, scream, make a scene. Instead, he looked at me with an expression I will never forget. You won, he said simply. This is not a competition, Robert. It is education. Education, he laughed bitterly. Through humiliation and revenge. The humiliation was your idea 3 weeks ago. I merely returned it. Michael joined his brother, picking up the termination envelope. And now? Now you will discover what real life is like. Without invisible family protection. Without special privileges. Without a father to run to when things get difficult. Do you really never want to see us again? Andrew asked. His voice choked. For a moment, just a moment, I felt a pang of old paternal love. My lost, scared boys asking for forgiveness. Then I remembered the laughter during dinner, the lies about work hours, the plans to institutionalize me, the WhatsApp conversations mocking my little problems. Andrew, I said calmly, for 3 weeks you demonstrated that you don't want a father. You want a family obligation that you'd like to outsource to a senior living home. We made mistakes. Yes, you made mistakes, and every action has consequences. The security guards positioned themselves near the door. Gentlemen, when you are ready. Robert looked around the office one last time. The office of the father he never truly knew. How long did you plan this? I didn't plan it. You created the circumstances. But the investigation, the documents, all of this takes time. It took 3 weeks. The same time you took planning my institutionalization. Michael headed for the door, but stopped. Are you really going to donate everything? Every single cent? And if we prove we've changed someday? A long pause. Michael, you had 45 years to prove you loved me. You failed. I won't give you another 45 to try again. Andrew was the last one to head toward the door. Can I ask one question? You may. Do you hate us? The question took me by surprise. Hate? I analyzed my feelings carefully. No, Andrew, I don't feel hate. Then what? Disappointment. Deep disappointment with the men I raised to be better than they are. And is there a way back? I looked at him. My youngest son, the baby I used to rock when he cried, the child who ran to my arms when he got hurt, the teenager who asked me for advice about girls. Andrew, I said softly, you killed the father I was. The Eli who loved you unconditionally died when I discovered that love was one-sided. But the man standing here now is a businessman and dealing with problematic former employees who, by coincidence, also came out of my body. The phrase echoed through the room like a final sentence. Good afternoon, gentlemen. The security guards will accompany you. They left in silence. Robert, walking like an automaton. Michael crying again. Andrew looked back one last time, as if waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. The door closed with a soft click. Julian and I were left alone in the room. Eli, he said after a long silence, are you sure about what you just did? I looked out the window. Down below, 3 men in suits were leaving the building, escorted by security guards. My sons. Ex-sons. Julian, sir, I replied. For the first time in 3 weeks, I am absolutely sure of something. Of what? I smiled for the first time since the fateful dinner. That I finally taught them what it means to have a real father. And you know what the most satisfying part was? What? That they finally respected me. 3 months later, sitting in the same penthouse where I planned my retribution, I can tell you what life is like after destroying your own family. It is quiet. Not the bad, tension-filled silence of those forced dinners where I pretended to enjoy my son's cruel jokes. It is a different kind of silence, clean, like when you finally stop hearing an irritating noise you didn't even realize was bothering you. My phone no longer rings on Sundays with Robert checking if I'm okay. Translation: checking if I'm still alive for the inheritance. I don't get calls from Michael asking for help with bills he could solve alone. Andrew no longer shows up feigning concern when he really just wanted to make sure I wasn't inventing little problems. The modest house where I pretended to live for 20 years was sold in April. Yes, I sold it myself for $1.1 million. Quite a bit more than the $800,000 I had mentioned to them. The money went directly to the Senior Care Foundation. Ironic, right? The house they wanted to sell to institutionalize me will now build dignified places for truly needy elders. I found out through corporate newspapers what happened to them after the dismissal. Robert got a job at a smaller construction company, earning a third of what he made with me. Michael became an independent accountant, unstable work without the corporate benefits he so enjoyed misusing. Andrew had to close the private practice he maintained and returned to being an associate lawyer. How did I find out? Because the city is big, but the corporate market is small. People talk. And when you are Eli Sterling of Sterling Enterprises, people tell you things. Mr. Sterling, said Eliza, an executive I met at an event. "I saw those Sterling boys who worked for you. How are they?" "Family." "Ex-family," I replied simply. "And former employees." She looked surprised, but she had enough manners not to insist. The truth is, I feel relief. For decades, I carried the weight of 3 adults who behaved like spoiled adolescents. I worried constantly. Was Robert being responsible at work? Was Michael taking good care of the finances? Was Andrew being ethical with clients? Now, I know they weren't, and it's no longer my problem. But it would be a lie to say there aren't difficult moments. Last week, I passed a school and saw a grandfather picking up his grandson. The boy ran to him, shouting, "Grandpa!" with that pure joy only children have. For a second, just a second, I felt a pang of something that might be regret. Then I remembered that my own grandsons laughed when their parents humiliated me at the table. They laughed at the grandfather who cooked with love, who always remembered birthdays, who saved money from his own modest means to give Christmas presents. The pang passed. Dr. Hayes visits me every Thursday. Not to discuss business, although we have a lot of work with the foundations I created. He comes because he cares. He is the only person who knows the complete story and understands the nuances of what I did. "Eli," he told me last week, "don't you miss anything?" "What?" "Being a father." I thought carefully before answering. "Julian, for 45 years I was a father to 3 boys. Then for 20 years I pretended to be a father to 3 adults who treated me like a burden. I discovered that I prefer being an entrepreneur of 300 employees who respect me. But fatherhood is only worthwhile when it is reciprocal. Julian, when you love and are loved back, when you teach and see your children apply your teachings, when you sacrifice, and that sacrifice is acknowledged." I took a sip of the French wine we were sharing, a 1995 Bordeaux, the kind that poor Eli could never afford to drink. I was the father of 3 men who saw me as an incompetent employee. Now I am the CEO of a company that generates 847 direct jobs and hundreds of indirect ones. Which do you think has more social value? Julian laughed, but it was a sad laugh. Are you more cynical? I'm not more cynical. I'm more realistic. And it's true. For decades, I lived in a fantasy where I believed that paternal love would be naturally reciprocated, that if I was a good father, I would have sons who would love me in old age, that family was something unconditional, eternal, sacred, romantic nonsense. Family is like any other human relationship. It requires mutual investment, reciprocal respect, bilateral consideration. When one party stops investing, or worse, when one party invests only to benefit itself, the relationship dies. My sons stopped loving me at some point that I can't identify, probably when they got married and decided I was an inconvenient family obligation. They continued playing the role of loving sons because it was socially convenient. But the real love died years ago. I just took too long to accept it. What bothers me the most, and this is the part that makes me question if I'm a good person, is that I feel satisfaction. Genuine satisfaction when I learned that Robert lost the BMW and had to go back to using public transportation. Real pleasure when I discovered that Michael had to cancel his children's private school. Dark joy when they told me Andrew had to sell his condo and move to a smaller place. Does that make me a bad person? Maybe. But it definitely makes me a human person. Because for 20 years I watched my sons prosper, using resources I indirectly provided while they treated me as dead weight. I watched them buy cars, condos, expensive clothes, trips, all indirectly financed by the money of the poor old man they despised. Now they are discovering what it's like to live without a safety net, without a stable job at a company controlled by Dad, without special privileges disguised as coincidences, without corporate benefits to misuse. They are living in the real world for the first time in their adult lives. And you know what? I think it will be good for them. Not good enough for me to go back. That will never happen. But maybe in a few years, when they are truly mature, when they understand the value of the things they had, when they learn to be men of integrity on their own merit, maybe I will consider meeting the improved version of them. Or maybe not, because the truth is, I like the man I became after I stopped pretending to be smaller than I really am. I like using my real name in business meetings. I like being respected by my competition, not tolerated out of family obligation. I like making decisions based on logic, not on the romantic hope that family is sacred. The Eli who raised those 3 men died. The Eli who lives now is stronger, smarter, more realistic, and definitely happier. 6 months later, on a September afternoon, I was reviewing proposals for the new headquarters of the Senior Care Foundation when Shonda knocked on the door. "Mr. Sterling, you have a visitor." "Who?" "Your grandson, Gabriel." My heart stopped for a second. Gabriel, Robert's son, 17 years old. The boy who laughed when his father humiliated me, but who had always been my favorite grandson, although I could never show favoritism. "Is he alone?" "Yes. He says he needs to talk to you about college." College. Of course. The money. "Send him in." Gabriel entered the room as if stepping onto enemy territory. He was thinner, more mature, with that slightly hunched posture of someone carrying too much emotional weight for his age. "Hello, Grandpa." "Hello." Gabriel looked around the office with the same wide eyes his father had shown 6 months earlier. "So, it's all true, that you're rich, that you always were." "Yes." An awkward silence. He sat in the chair where his father had nearly collapsed. "Why did you never tell us?" "Because I believed that hiding my wealth would protect the family from the corruption that easy money brings." "And did it protect you?" I looked at him, 17 years old, handsome like his mother, with the brilliant intelligence all the Sterlings seemed to inherit. "What do you think?" He laughed bitterly. "I think it didn't work out very well." "Why?" "Because my dad is a mess. My mom is thinking about separating. My uncles, well, you know what happened to them. And me." He paused. "I'm confused." The answer came out more honest than he probably intended. "Why?" "Because all my life, my dad talked about you as if you were, a poor guy we had to take care of, help. And now I find out that was a lie." "It wasn't a lie," I countered. "My dad really believed it. I believed it." "Gabrielle, I said calmly. "You laughed when he humiliated me, at the table." He stopped as if he had been slapped. "Do you remember when he made the toast to our father, who finally accepted that he is nothing in life?" Silence. "You laughed along with everyone. Genuine, amused laughter, as if your grandfather's humiliation was family entertainment." I was a kid." "You were 16, Gabriel. You were not a child. You were a young man who learned from his family that disrespecting elders is acceptable as long as it's done in a group." He began to cry. Not the manipulative crying I had seen before, but genuine tears of shame. I regret it. I know. Can I fix this? Oh. The question everyone asked, the question I expected but feared to answer. Gabriel, do you want to know the difference between you and your father? He nodded, wiping his nose. Your father regretted it when he discovered I had money. You are regretting it because you understood that you hurt someone who loved you. It is different. Completely different. I got up and walked to the window. Your father spent 6 months trying to call me, sending letters begging for forgiveness, but always mentioning financial difficulties, always hinting that a second chance would solve his problems. And you came here knowing that I owe you nothing, knowing that I burned bridges with your family, knowing that I could kick you out and never think about it again. I turned to look at him. Why did you come? Because I wanted you to know that I understood. Understood that you are not bad, that the adults in my family failed. I returned to my chair. This conversation was going in a direction I hadn't anticipated. And what do you intend to do with that understanding? Nothing. I mean, I don't want to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know that we are not all the same. I looked at him for a long time. 17 years old. The age where you can become a decent person, or follow the bad examples you received at home. Gabriel, can I ask you something? Sure. If you were me at that table, hearing the laughter, how would you react? He thought carefully. I don't know. I'd probably be devastated. And after discovering the plans for the senior living home, the WhatsApp conversations, the whole truth, I think I'd be angry. Angry enough to do what you did. A long pause. Then maybe you understand that what I did was not gratuitous cruelty. It was delayed education. I understand. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a business card. Gabriel, are you in your final year of high school? Yes. What do you want to study? Medicine. But, well, now it's going to be difficult to pay for private university, public university, if I can get in, or the national university, if I get a spot. I wrote something on the back of the card. Take this to Dr. Martin Costa at the Victims of Family Abandonment Foundation. It is one of the institutions I fund. What is this? It's a scholarship program for young people who show the potential to be better than their families. He looked at the card in disbelief. But there are conditions. What conditions? First, you will work in our clinics during university. It's not easy work, caring for abandoned elders. Second, this is between you and me. No one in your family can know. Understood. Third, if I ever see you repeating your father's patterns, the scholarship is instantly revoked. I won't do it. I promise you. Don't promise me, Gabriel. Prove it. He stood up, the card tightly clutched in his hand. Thank you, Grandpa. Don't call me Grandpa yet. You earned the right to call me Elias. The title of Grandpa, you'll have to earn that. He nodded, understanding. Thank you, Elias. After he left, I remained alone in the office, thinking that maybe there was still hope. But I also made a decision that afternoon. Gabriel would be the test. If I could maintain a healthy relationship with him, based on mutual respect, clear boundaries, and genuine affection, without the tiety that had poisoned my relationships with his father and uncles, then maybe I hadn't completely lost the ability to be a family man. But if Gabriel also disappointed me, if he too proved to be just another Sterling looking for easy benefits, then I would close that chapter of my life forever. Gabriel kept his word. He started the scholarship program at the Victims of Family Abandonment Foundation and began working at our senior care clinic downtown on the weekends. According to Dr. Costa's reports, he was exemplary, always punctual, respectful of the patients, genuinely interested in learning. More importantly, he never mentioned our agreement to anyone in his family. I know this because I still had ways of monitoring what was happening in the Sterling household, not through investigators this time, but by the simple fact that the corporate world talks. And when your ex-sons are struggling, people notice. Robert's situation had worsened considerably. The smaller construction company where he worked was going through financial difficulties. There were rumors of layoffs. His B&M had indeed been repossessed, and Tanya had started working as a real estate agent to help with household expenses. Michael's independent accounting business wasn't going well either. Without the corporate structure and stable clients that Ascendant Group had provided, he was struggling to build a client base. They had moved to a smaller condo in a less prestigious neighborhood. Andrew seemed to be adapting better. He worked as an associate lawyer at a mid-sized firm. He was truly learning what it meant to work for his salary instead of floating on family connections. His marriage, however, was under strain. Apparently, his wife was not handling the financial degradation well. And through all this, none of them had attempted to contact me directly since the day they were fired. November 2022. Gabriel came for his monthly visit on a Thursday afternoon. He looked different, more confident, more mature. Working with abandoned and elders was changing him, just as I had hoped. "How are things at the clinic?" I asked. "Hard," he said honestly. "Yesterday, I met an 87-year-old man whose children dumped him there because they didn't want to deal with his Alzheimer's. He spends all day asking when his son is coming to visit. His son hasn't been there in 8 months." We sat in silence for a moment. "It makes me think about what almost happened to you," Gabriel said quietly. "The difference," I replied, "is that that man's children probably didn't have the resources to care for him properly. Your father and uncles simply didn't want to be inconvenienced." Gabriel nodded. "I'm starting to understand why you did what you did." "Good. Understanding consequences is the first step toward making better decisions." He shifted in his chair. "Can I ask you something personal?" "You can ask. I may not answer." "Do you miss them? My dad? My uncles?" The question I had been asking myself for months. "I miss who I thought they were," I said carefully. "I miss the sons I thought I had raised. But those men, the ones who laughed at me, the ones who planned to warehouse me in a senior living home, the ones who stole from my company? No, Gabriel, I don't miss them. But they are still your children. Biologically, yes. In all of the ways that matter, no." Gabriel was silent for a long time. "My dad asks about you sometimes." "What does he ask?" "If you're okay, if you're angry." "And what do you tell him?" "That I don't know. That we don't talk about you." Smart boy. "Gabriel," I continued, "your father had 65 years to show me respect. He chose to show me contempt. That is not anger talking. That is simply cause and effect." December 2022. The holidays were different that year. For the first time in decades, I spent Christmas alone. Well, not completely alone. Dr. Hayes invited me to his family's dinner, and Shonda organized a small gathering at the foundation for elderly residents who had nowhere to go. But it was the first Christmas without the traditional Sterling family dinner, without the forced smiles and obligatory gifts, without having to pretend I enjoyed my son's company. While they barely tolerated me, it was peaceful. I received no calls, cards, or messages from Robert, Michael, or Andrew. Part of me wondered if they even remembered it was Christmas, or if they were too busy dealing with their new financial realities to think about their discarded father. Gabriel sent me a text on Christmas morning. Happy Christmas, Ilias. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be better than my family. It was the best Christmas gift I had received in years. January 2023. Gabriel's second monthly visit brought unexpected news. My parents are getting divorced, he said without preamble. I set down my coffee cup. I'm sorry. Truly sorry. The question was sharp, challenging. He was testing me. Yes, Gabriel, I'm sorry. Whatever your father's faults, I never wanted their marriage to fail. Children suffer when families break, even after everything he did to you. I thought you'd be, I don't know, happy? Maybe. Gabriel, one of the differences between a good man and a bad man is that a good man does not rejoice in unnecessary suffering. Even when it happens to people who hurt him, he absorbed this in silence. How are you handling it? Better than I expected, I think. Seeing what happened with you prepared me for the idea that families aren't as permanent as they teach us to believe. Wise beyond his years. And your father? How's he handling it? Gabriel hesitated. Not well. He's been drinking more. He lost his job last month. My mom says he just sits around the house talking about how everything went wrong. After that dinner, as if the problem was the dinner itself, not the decades of disrespect that led to it. He blames you for everything, Gabriel continued. He says you destroyed the family out of spite. And what do you think? I think he destroyed the family by forgetting how to love his father. Sometimes Gabriel said things that reminded me so much of myself at his age that it was almost unsettling. March 2023. 1 year later, 1 year after the fateful dinner, Gabriel arrived for his monthly visit with news that would test everything I thought I knew about forgiveness and second chances. My dad wants to see you, he said. I'd been waiting for this moment for months, but it still hit me like a physical impact. What did you tell him? Nothing. I told him I would ask, but that I couldn't promise anything. What does he want? Gabriel pulled out a letter. Handwritten, not typed. Robert's familiar handwriting filled 2 pages. He asked me to give you this. I took the letter, but didn't open it immediately. Did you read it? No, sir. He said it was private. I set the letter on my desk. And what do you think I should do? That's not my decision. I'm asking for your opinion, Gabriel. You know both of us now. You've seen what he did, and you've seen what I became. What would you do? Gabriel was silent for a long time, looking at the city skyline outside the window. A year ago, I would have said you should forgive him, he finally said. Family is family, right? That's what they taught me. And now, I've spent a year taking care of elders whose families abandoned them. I've seen what happens when love turns into obligation, when respect turns into resentment. He turned back to me. I think some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt, not because of the fire, but because the foundation was rotten from the start. That's a very mature perspective for an 18-year-old. I've had good teachers. After Gabriel left, I sat alone with Robert's letter for 2 hours before opening it. When I finally did, I found exactly what I expected. Apologies mixed with justifications, repentance mixed with blame. And underneath it all, the same fundamental misunderstanding that had always defined our relationship. Dad, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I had to try. These months have been hell. I lost my job. Tanya left me. I'm about to lose the house. But the worst part isn't the money. It's knowing that I destroyed my relationship with my father. I've had a lot of time to think about what happened, and I realize now that we were wrong. The dinner, the senior living home, everything. We disrespected you, and you had every right to be angry. But Dad, what you did to us was so extreme. Firing us, cutting us out of your will, turning Gabriel against us. It feels like you wanted to completely destroy our lives. I know I made mistakes, but I'm still your son. Doesn't that count for something? Can't we find a way to get past this? I'm not asking for my job or money back. I just want my father back. I want a chance to prove to you that I can be better. Please, Dad, give me one more chance. Robert. I read the letter 3 times, looking for any sign that Robert truly understood what he had done wrong. I found apologies for specific actions, but no comprehension of the deeper betrayal. He felt bad about the dinner, about the senior living home, but he still framed my response as extreme and destructive. He still didn't understand that consequences are not punishment, but education. More tellingly, he mentioned losing his job, his wife, his house. But not once did he express concern for how his actions had hurt me. His repentance was entirely self-centered. And the line about turning Gabriel against them revealed that he still saw our grandson as a possession to fight over, instead of a young man making his own choices. I wrote my reply that same afternoon. Robert, I received your letter. I appreciate you taking the time to write it by hand. You say you want your father back, but I'm not sure you ever knew who your father really was. For 65 years, you only saw what you chose to see. The poor man who needed your help, or the rich man who could solve your problems. You never saw Elias Sterling, the man who built a business from nothing, who created jobs for hundreds of people, who spent decades protecting his sons from the corruption of easy money, only to discover that they had become corrupt anyway. You apologize for specific actions, but show no comprehension of the pattern those actions represented. This was not about one dinner or one senior living plan. It was about an entire life of disrespect disguised as love. You say my response was extreme, but you still don't understand that I did not destroy our family. I simply stopped pretending it existed. I wish you the best in rebuilding your life, Robert. I genuinely hope you find happiness and success, but I will not be part of that journey. The father you remember is gone. The man who remains has no room in his life for people who confuse tolerance with love. Elias sealed the letter and gave it to Gabriel on his next visit, with instructions to deliver it only if Robert specifically asked about my reply. June 2023. Gabriel graduated from high school with honors and was accepted into the National University for Medicine. I attended his graduation ceremony, sitting at the back, watching from a distance as he walked across the stage to receive his diploma. Robert was there too, looking older and more worn than his 56 years. He saw me but made no attempt to approach. We simply nodded to each other across the auditorium, an acknowledgement between strangers who once shared a surname. After the ceremony, Gabriel found me in the parking lot. Thanks for coming. I'm proud of you. Did you see my dad? I did. He received your letter. Gabriel shrugged. He was angry at first, called you heartless, cruel. But then he was quiet for a long time. I think part of him knows you're right. And how do you feel about all this, Gabriel? Having a family divided like this? He considered the question seriously, as he always did. I feel sad, he finally said. Sad that it came to this. But I don't regret it because I learned something important this year. What is that? That love without respect isn't really love. It's just habit. December 2023. 2 years later, 2 years after the fateful dinner, I received an unexpected visitor. Not Gabriel, who was in his first semester at the National University, excelling in his studies and continuing his work at the foundation on weekends. It was Andrew. Shonda nervously announced him, unsure how I would react. I almost told her to send him back, but curiosity got the better of me. He looked different, thinner, grayer, wearing a suit that had seen better days. The confident lawyer who once sat in my office justifying his behavior was gone, replaced by a man who had clearly learned what humility looks like. "Elias," he said, using my first name instead of Dad, a small sign of respect that did not go unnoticed. "Andrew, thank you for seeing me. I haven't decided to see you yet. You have 5 minutes to explain why you are here." He nodded, accepting the terms. "I came to apologize. Not to ask for anything. Not to try to rebuild our relationship. Just to apologize. I'm listening. 2 years ago, I participated in humiliating and planning to abandon a man who spent his entire life sacrificing for his children. That man deserved respect, gratitude, and love. Instead, we gave him cruelty, disguised as concern." He paused, collecting himself. "I've spent 2 years learning what it's like to really work instead of floating in family connections. I've seen my marriage strain under financial pressure. I've seen my children adapt to a smaller house, a more modest lifestyle. And through it all, I've realized that every struggle we've faced is a direct result of taking for granted the advantages we never earned. Advantages provided by a father we never bothered to truly know or appreciate." Andrew sat down, uninvited, but somehow it didn't feel presumptuous. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, Elias. I know I don't deserve it. I'm here because I needed you to know that at least one of your sons finally understands what he lost." "What do you think you lost, Andrew?" "A father who loved us, despite our flaws. A man who built something extraordinary and could have taught us how to do the same. A chance to be the kind of men who deserved the sacrifices you made." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or selfish motivation. I found none. "Why now?" I asked. "Because Gabriel told me something that has been haunting me for months." "What did he tell you?" "He said that love without respect isn't really love. It's just a habit." Andrew's voice broke slightly. I realized, that's all we ever gave you. Habit. We went through the motions of being your sons, without ever truly loving the man you were. We sat in silence for several minutes. "I should go," Andrew finally said. "I just needed you to know that your lesson worked. It's too late to fix what we broke, but it worked." He stood up to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, I'm proud to have been your son, even if I was never worthy of it." After he left, I sat alone in my office for hours, feeling something I hadn't felt in 2 years: confusion. For 24 months, I had been certain of my choices, confident in my decisions, at peace with the consequences I had imposed. Andrew's visit had introduced something I wasn't prepared for: doubt. Not doubt about whether my actions were justified. They absolutely were. Doubt about whether forgiveness was possible, whether redemption could be real, whether some relationships could be rebuilt from scratch instead of simply abandoned. The final lesson. Yes, there is a lesson in all of this. It's not about revenge or justice or even family. It's about respect. For 65 years, I allowed people to treat me as less than I was, because I believed that was what love required. I thought being a good father meant accepting disrespect, tolerating cruelty, and always being available to solve problems for people who saw me as a convenient solution rather than a human being worthy of dignity. I was wrong. Love without respect is not love at all. It is codependency, manipulation, or habit disguised as affection. When I finally demanded respect, when I finally showed my sons exactly who I was and what I was capable of, everything changed. Some relationships ended, but at least one became real for the first time. Andrew earned his way back into my table, not by apologizing, but by changing, not by begging for forgiveness, but by becoming someone worthy of it, not by appealing to family obligation, but by proving he could treat me as a human being who deserved dignity. That is the difference between redemption and manipulation. Redemption requires change. Manipulation only requires better apologies. Gabriel never had to earn his way back because he never truly left. He learned from his family's mistakes instead of repeating them. Robert and Michael are still waiting for me to return to being the man who accepted their disrespect as the price of their company. That man is dead, and I do not regret seeing him go. Where I am now. Today, I am 68 years old. I am richer than ever, respected in my industry, surrounded by people who value me for who I am rather than what I can provide. I have a grandson who genuinely loves me and a son who authentically respects me. It is not the family I started with, but it is infinitely better than the family I was pretending to have. Most importantly, I have my dignity. For the first time in decades, no one treats me as a burden, convenience, or obligation. Every person in my life chooses to be there, and I choose to have them there. That mutual choice, that mutual respect, is what real family looks like. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.